Okay, so I'm going to use these books and read them a little bit as reference points. But today I wanted to talk about some of the emails that I'm receiving um, that talk about this tongue twister, Build Back Better Act. Hard to say, tongue twister for sure. And that is this so-called $3.5 trillion, budget bill that is being dramatized down in Washington and across the country. And one of the things that strikes me all the time is the fact that we want to stay inside that system where they can change the rules. And, this isn't conspiracy theory that people want to talk about. This is just the reality of the way things have gone historically. It starts, well, it probably doesn't start with, but we can say that income taxes is a place we can start, which when that first came about in the early 1900s, the federal income tax, hey, they said this is going to be temporary. It's sort of like toll booths. They're going to be temporary. Well, they rarely ever temporary, except for now there's no booth in many places. There's just cameras and surveillance, basically, to capture that you've traveled on these roads. And if you haven't got some sort of easy pass transponder, you'll get a letter in the mail saying you owe money. But the idea, back to income taxes, is that was not going to be a permanent thing. And then at this point, when we ended up with these employee benefits and we ended up with these safety nets, Social Security, Medicare, these entitlement programs, that was taken out of our pay, right? We were compulsory. It was compulsory to, contribute. You had to. I'm sorry if I'm not using the right words here, but they, basically there's no choice. We're just going to take it out of your pay, and then we're going to take care of this safety net for you, right? Well, you'd think that at some point that money was going to stream to you and then it would be completely income tax free, but that's not the case. And I'm going to read a little bit from the Confessions of a CPA, subtitled The Capital Equivalent Value of Life Insurance. And the author, Brian Bloom, has a section titled Life Insurance Trickle Down Effect, Social Security. And here we go. What are the unexpected benefits of tax-exempt withdrawals? Well, today, in general, 50% of your Social Security is taxable at your highest income tax bracket rate if your provisional, quote unquote, income exceeds $25,000 if you are single, or $32,000 if you are married. I think it might be 26 now for single and 36 for couples, married couples. He goes on to say, today, as much as 85% of your Social Security payments could be subject to this additional income tax at higher thresholds of provisional income. So I'm going to stop there for a second. So provisional is being added to any income that you have, meaning if you were getting, let's say, I don't know, $30,000 as a single person, you were getting that as Social Security income every year, $2,500 a month, which is, kind of middle of the road, I would say, or it's going to be middle of the road. So it's not a stretch. So let's just say that anything over this, I think it's 26,000. So that would be 4,000. And that means that they can tax that up to 85% of that 4,000. Now, all of that income, that 85%, gets tacked on to any IRA distributions, any 401k distributions, any part-time income you have, any consulting income you have. And so what we're saying is up to 85% of your Social Security can actually be subject to an income tax. He goes on to say, quote unquote, provisional income is your gross income plus 50% of your gross Social Security payments, plus your tax-free interest. That's right. Your tax-free municipal bond interest may make your Social Security taxable. So much for tax-free. There is a difference between tax-free and tax-exempt. We now see that anything tax-free is still reported to the U.S. government for tax purposes. In this case, to determine the taxability of your Social Security. What other tax-free investments are reported to the U.S. government for tax purposes? A distribution from your Roth IRA is reported on a 1099-R form, even though it is not taxable income. Will it ever be included as a taxable income? Will it ever become part of the provisional income definition? We don't know, but it is being reported. So I'm going to interject before going on. That's the idea. I'm saying when things are supposed to be temporary or they're not even supposed to happen, and then they start to happen, and then they create another program. They create this Roth, which goes in post-tax, but grows deferred and then gets distributed tax-free. That's still under one of these government plans, which means they can change the rules. Why, when there's a product like a permanent whole life insurance policy that does the same thing as a Roth, but doesn't limit the amount of money that you can put in, it goes in post-tax, and then it grows tax deferred, but it's tax exempt. It doesn't get reported to the government. It doesn't come out on a 1099. Could they change it? Sure, but then it's not even reported today. And the fact is, government officials own a lot of this type of life insurance because they know it is protected. Let me go on. To make matters worse, haven't you already been taxed on your Social Security deposits when you were working? Of course you were. Our taxable income is determined when Social Security taxes are withheld. If they are taxed again when you receive the benefits, that would be double taxation. If your members of Congress know about this double taxation, that means that your interests were represented when this second tax was enacted in 1984. We started a revolution in this country because we were being taxed once by the British government without representation. Now this is double taxation with representation. Now this is double taxation with representation. Isn't it time you did something about this? You can live your retirement years without having reportable taxable or provisional income. What does this mean for the capital equivalent value and capital equivalent value rate of return calculations? Today, back in 2018, the maximum someone can receive in Social Security benefits at normal retirement was $33,458 per year. The non-working marriage partner of that recipient would be entitled to a minimum of $16,000. So let's just say half of it, for a total of $50,184. Although working spouses are entitled to 100% of their earned Social Security, which may exceed the 50% of a non-working spouse. So what we're saying is that non-working marriage partner can take 50%, add it to their own normal retirement, and the total is $50,000. One half of the $50,184 is what is automatically added to provisional income. That is $25,092. That doesn't even leave $7,000 from other sources before any Social Security is taxed. If your provisional income is $31,999, none of your Social Security is taxed. If your provisional income is $32,000, just $1 more, then your Social Security begins to be taxed. Up to 85% of Social Security is taxed for a married couple, beginning at 44,000 of provisional income. That only leaves $18,908 for municipal bond income and distributions from a 401k and IRAs before the maximum percentage of Social Security is subject to taxation. He goes on, and I'm not going to keep going with this. I wanted to say most people don't understand that their Social Security will be taxed, most likely. And I also want to throw out there something I've shared before is when I have these conversations with people, and I was one of them at one time that believed, well, by the time I'm, near retirement age, Social Security won't even be around, right? It's insolvent. They won't have it. Well, it's such a political football, these entitlement programs, that my belief is that it'll always be around. It's just that the value of those dollars will be so minimized that it'll seem as if it really, it isn't around, as if it's, defunct. Because of the value of our dollars going down through this printing of money in such a ridiculous fashion, that the value of each dollar will be worth so little that even if you're getting $40,000 in Social Security income, it'll be pennies to you. It really won't make any big difference in your life. So I don't think it's going to go away, but because it'll be considered dollars that gets tacked onto something else, it will affect what kind of taxes you have to pay. So Brian, the author of this book, Confessions of a CPA, his whole goal is to help people find ways to have no income when they go to retire. Don't show income. You want to have cash flow, but you don't want to have income. I'm going to go on a little bit here and talk about life insurance, trickle-down effect, Medicare, and other income-based benefits. Okay, here's another one. You don't think you're ever going to get taxed on that? Well, you're not going to get taxed, but it's going to cost you more in some cases than others, depending on what your income is. Did you know that not everyone pays the same Medicare premium at age 65, or whatever the retirement age is at the time? Amount you pay is determined by your income the 2 years before the current year. The more income you report on your income tax return, the more you pay for Medicare. Income, quote unquote, refers to your 401k, a pension, an IRA distribution, and up to that 85% of your Social Security benefits and any other taxable income you may have, plus your tax-exempt interest income. The federal government has not yet required that your Roth IRA distributions be included in the modified adjusted gross income. Everyone in 2018 paid at least $134 per month for Part B Medicare, but you could have been required to pay as much as $428 per month for the same set of benefits. That is potentially $3,528 more per year if your alternative investment is taxable income. Since life insurance is tax exempt, that is another adjustment you must make to the cash equivalent value and the cash equivalent value rate of return calculations. Meaning when you compare life insurance to other kinds of investments, you have to take into account what those taxes would be on those other investments. What about other income-based benefits? They think of new ones every year. The more income you have, the less you get. If you don't have income, then you get all of the benefits. So I'm going to jump from there to reading a little bit from the pension idea, which was written in 1950. And there's a section called the employee controlled pensions. The subject of compulsory company pensions is not to be confused with any pension plan whereby each employee has the right to request that the company withhold a portion of his current earnings to be paid to him as a pension at some time in the future. Okay, you have the right. You ask them to hold some of it aside. Okay. Even though the company sets aside a specific pension fund for a specific employee in this manner, it is in reality a part of his wage to be included in the company's current cost of labor. The individual employee has a choice as to when he will accept his wage, now or in the future. And if he really has control over the choice of his being in or being out of the plan, then it is not compulsory. So long as the choice of staying in or withdrawing his accumulated fund rests with the employee, the company management cannot use the pension funds as a means of tying the employee to his job. If control of his pension fund is vested in the employee, then it cannot be used to immobilize him when the greater opportunity exists elsewhere. So this idea of IRAs and 401ks and when you can distribute it, that is immobilizing you, not from your employment necessarily, but it immobilizes you from, hey, I need the money for X emergency. I've decided I want to leave my employment. This is my savings. And now it's been locked up with penalties if I want to take it out early, right? That is the real shame of these programs, right? Is that this is pretty much the savings, the saved production, meaning the excess production a person has, which is their excess income over and above what they have for daily living needs, then that money is typically saved in these qualified plans because everything's been driven about, hey, that's what goes in, tax deferred, grows tax deferred, and then comes out at some point and is taxed at a rate that, as I've said before, you don't know what that's going to be. So we're going to another section called the funded pension. Some advocates of compulsory company pensions contend that the only problem is to see that the pension is funded on an actuarially sound basis. This means that each company would have to build up an investment trust during the working life of each employee, which would be sufficient in principal and interest to provide the employee's pension from the date of his retirement until his death. Their argument will be that some companies have already done just that, now have a sound, fully funded pension plan. But the facts are that a few of the business corporations in America today, back in 1950, can boast a net worth sufficient to guarantee payment of a pension of $100 a month for each employee now on the payroll after he has reached the age of 65. This means that some firms already have pledged themselves via the pension route into technical bankruptcy. Can you believe, this is me talking, can you believe that this was written in 1950? This was the early days of pensions. There were pensions well before, this wage freeze that kind of really propelled the pension funds because it was another way, deferred income was not considered a pay increase. So even though there was a wage freeze on by FDR, they got around it with these pension plans. Here in 1950, he's already talking about these are going to be technically bankrupt when they need to pay out. And so all this stuff is being manipulated. And eventually it'll come to roost at some point that there'll be a problem. There is a problem right now, and there's a lot of shenanigans going on to try to bolster the numbers, to keep people in the market, to manipulate the markets. You can get out from under this, right? And not be subject to additional taxes on your income. You might find taxes elsewhere, but don't leave it as a target. So I want to wrap up there. Just food for thought, two great books. Let me know if you'd like to get either one, if you'd like to have any further conversations. Please hit the like button. I'd be happy to continue to do this because, this is what I'm trying to do to educate people. But please also provide ideas of things you'd like to learn about, things you'd like to discuss, have me discuss, and we'll go from there. I hope you're having a great day. Take care. Bye.